Boy, Miss Williams is on
One
one
minute.
today.
But you know when I have board meetings, seem like it's a celebration after it's over and I can just do
Khalees, did your mom send you a picture?
What?
See, that's her name, you know Cindy Locker Method. That's Cindy Locker.
Girls just
It's
wanna
an
have fun.
update, it's an update from Cindy Lou.
Girls just wanna have fun.
That's right.
Girls just wanna have fun.
It is now 5:30. Good evening, everyone. We always begin with public comments. Are there any public comments? There being none, I call this meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Colquitt.
Dr. Reddish.
Here.
Mrs. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Person West.
Present.
Mrs. Temple.
Here.
Mrs. Wonkum. Ms. McLean.
Here.
Mr. Steele.
Thank you. Please join me in executive closed session to discuss employment, appointment, promotion, or resignation of an employee. We're back in session. I'll entertain a motion for the action item 5.1, employment of personnel.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
so move that we accept the recommendation from our superintendent on the license personnel recognition and retirement and termination and license transfer and changes.
Second.
It has been properly moved and second that we approve the employment of personnel presented to us, being that it is employment of personnel. There can be no discussion, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It has been adopted. A motion to adjourn and go to workshop.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
so move that we adjourn to go into our business workshop, please.
Second.
Are now into workshop, and I will turn it over to Dr. Paluski.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of our Board of Education, I'll ask Mr. Brian Brown, our CFO, and Ms. Edwards to come forward. We do not have a formal presentation for you this evening. We did that on Tuesday, but we did promise you, based upon the questions that were asked, that we would provide you with, and the public, transparency to those questions. I do appreciate we had some board members after submit some questions. And I think Mr. Brown will address that his staff has been working over the past couple days, but although we don't have all the questions, we will provide. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Brown and Ms. Edwards about the questions, and then discussion as a board.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Paluski and members of the board. We have, I think we had a total of 56 questions. Yes, 56. This is a draft form. I think we've answered probably 85% of the questions on here. And we still reserve the right to go back and check for grammatical errors in the answers that we do have. But we wanted to get into your hands tonight what we had done and have completed. And then I anticipate we can finish these by tomorrow and get them edited. And if it's too late to get in the weekly communication, I'll just send them out via email with a carbon to Dr. Paluski on that, and then we can also include them in your next week's board communication packet. But we had lots of questions, lots of good questions. We even recorded some of the questions that were asked during the presentation on Tuesday night. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask me regarding the presentation Tuesday night, I'll be glad to answer those. Otherwise, I'd like for you to review these at your leisure, and we'll get you an official copy. It says draft at the top, so we'll get you an official copy with all the questions answered as soon as we finish those.
And
Go ahead.
no, I just want to say, and Madam President, if any board member would like time with Mr. Brown, a one-on-one to go a little bit deeper, we welcome that. Just work with Ms. Colquitt. We'll set that up. We can spend as much time as you want individually.
Ms. Person West, you have any further questions?
Not at this time, but just, I appreciate you and Ms. Edwards also in your department for putting all that together and doing all that work on it. I mean, it was very easy to follow, and it was clear and concise to me. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Thank you for all the answers we have here. We won't have to go through them. We can just take our time and look at them. And if anything else, we will follow your directions, Dr. Paluski, Board President, that if we have further questions that still don't have a clarity, we can come back to you.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
thank you, very good. Thank you for answering.
Ms. Temple?
Yes, I don't have any questions at this time, but I may for the week's end.
Ms. McLean?
I think today, after looking through all these things and sending some questions to you, the thing that I feel like I'm getting to is that I'm just wanting everything about this budget to be very transparent. And I know Dr. Paluski is wanting that across the district, about everything being transparent. And so I'm loving to see all the questions and then the answers that are coming with it. And I know that on our audit from Gibson, there were, this is probably getting a little off the subject of the budget, but maybe it's not. There was an appendix at the back that had a list of different kinds of reports that you could give in stats and
Sure.
ratios and all of those kind of things. And I would love to see those on our website so that everybody can take a look at that. But I think, especially I know because I've been a teacher, teachers especially want the transparency because they're always wanting to know what's going on and why didn't we get money and we wanted a raise and we didn't get it and they said we didn't have it. And so I just love this idea of transparency and talking about it in the open and taking these questions and digging in there and finding the answers for them. And I really, really appreciate that. But I looked at the website where we had the state required information, and there was an NSL funding report on there. And I went to our little budget book, and that wonderful little glossary that you had put in there of all of those different acronyms and what they were, but I couldn't find NSL. So I'm like, everybody in here probably knows NSL, and I don't know what it is. So
NSL has changed. It is now the ESA definition. The state changed the name of that funding, so the old name of ESA is NSL, the National School Lunch Funding. Has nothing to do with lunch. Okay, has nothing to do with lunch. They just that was the way it was named, and they changed the name so people wouldn't be confused about it. So now it is ESA, Enhanced Student Achievement Funding, and so if you're looking at an old NSL report, it is now that now refers to ESA funding. So it's the same money, they've just changed the name of it over time. But I can definitely put a reference to NSL in there and say see ESA.
okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes, you're welcome.
One other thing that I thought about today is I know in the budget we have the line item for insurance, and it just says insurance. I was just wondering how that breaks down on the insurance on the buildings or the insurance on the buses or the insurance on.
So do you know which line item that is?
Let's see.
I'm gonna take a stab in the dark, Mr. Brown. 65190, which would be
There's
652, which is property insurance, liability insurance, fleet insurance.
Yes, so that's
Other-
insurance on property and buses. So that would not refer to insurance benefits of employees. Benefits of employees are paid out of 62,000 funds. So all of the 62,000 are benefits related to employees. And then the 65, well, so there's a 6521, 6522, 6524. Are those the lines you're referring to?
yes.
So one is fleet insurance, one is liability insurance, other's property insurance. So property is obviously our buildings and contents. The liability insurance, we don't carry general liability insurance under law, Arkansas law. We have tort immunity, the district does, but we do carry professional liability insurance for protection of board members and our teaching staff in performance of their duties. And we also take out special general liability policies when we have, for instance, when we have student groups that travel outside the state. And we have students that are traveling on non-commercial buses, like school buses, and they're going out of state. So there's, we have liability insurance because we're driving our buses on the road, but the liability is limited in the state of Arkansas because of our tort immunity. But once you cross that Arkansas line, that immunity leaves. So we have to secure additional liability insurance when we have our vehicles traveling outside the state. So that is what those three lines are for. And then accident for insurance for students, that's just simply if there is an accident at school that's not fight related, you know, if it's an activity, an after-school activity, football, basketball, any kind of sports, or student activity, you know, if someone's at Quiz Bowl and they get hurt, that we have insurance that is secondary if the student has primary insurance, and it's primary if they don't have insurance at all. So,
Would you like us to add that, Ms. McLean, to our questions, and we'll put that in writing for you, that way we'll have it?
we'll do that.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
And are those three lines the ones you're referring to, Ms. McLean?
Yes.
Okay.
Any more questions, Ms. McLean? Ms. McLean?
Yes, I was looking for another one. I noticed that there's a line here for student field trip fees. Are those fees to pay the bus driver for the use of the bus to take a class on?
Can you tell me
Field
which
trip.
line that is?
I'm sorry, it is 68112.
All right, so that is, no, that would be a fee that someone may charge us, our school district, to enter. Like if we're going to the Science Museum and they have a fee that they charge for entry, that's where we would charge that fee.
Where does the pay come, or does the school budget have to cover the cost of paying a bus driver to take them and?
The
Yes.
bus driver is paid out of district funds for that. The funding for the entry to that would come out of either the school's budget, or if it was some type of approved activity that would go under Title I, it could be paid out of Title I. There are some activities where you can take students on trips, educational activities that's approved through Title I. It can pay for the entry fee. So it depends on the activity fee. It depends on the activity as to where it gets paid from. The salary for the bus driver to drive them over there is paid out of district funds. That's billed back to that school level for that.
You are just a fountain of knowledge, aren't you?
Those are things we deal with every day.
Speaking of buses and field trips, I know in the past, there've been years where they just say, we're not having any field trips this year, and I was assuming that was a cost thing. I don't know. But will there be field trips this year?
Yes, we put a hold on that due to COVID and restrictions, but yes, we're back to be able to have approved field trips through our approved process, but yes.
Okay, I think I'm done.
Mr. Steele, any questions?
I think she asked all my questions. I mean, she did, however, picking up on her last question that I was going to ask about, and I'll be setting up a meeting too with you, Mr. Brown. Did we give any savings from those type of things that we didn't do from the last couple of years of COVID? I know there were trips canceled, games canceled, activities canceled that were already in the budget. Did we get any savings?
So that would have been in fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 when those, there were some savings. Those would have been included in the transfer that we did. So the additional funds over $12.8 million in our net legal balance, that would be, those fundings would be in there. Now, if it was a Title I related activity that Title I wasn't spent, it would carry over into Title I, and that would be reallocated the next year. So if it
I heard a
was paid
district
for-
talking about that at the Capitol. And when do we go back to legislative audit?
What's that, sir?
When do we go back to legislative audit?
Legislative audit, they do
In the
desk
fall?
audits, I believe, every 3 years.
Okay.
From them, but we do our normal annual audit every year with that.
And when is that?
They come in November, the first 2
In
weeks
the
in
fall.
November, and then that, usually, they do an on-site 2-week audit with access to records, and then they work from their office normally through December and into January to complete the audit.
Good. Thank you, Madam President.
So that we can have it on the agenda for September 15th to vote on. If everybody would schedule their individual question meetings with Mr. Brown,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that way we'll be ready to vote on September 15th.
Yes, ma'am. We'll bring it forward.
So we don't have to have a special board meeting just,
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Other than that, great, awesome,
Thank you, ma'am. Good.
very thorough.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Edwards,
you.
Mr. Brown.
That was the only item that was on the workshop,
Yes,
so everybody have a good evening.
Well, thank you. You
Look
too.
at Dr. Hooper.
5:57.